Everyone, and welcome back to our video series on fake news. My name is Tom Petrie. I am a nutritionist in Mechanicville, New York, and we're going to continue on a discussion that was inspired originally by an article in The Watchdogs on January 20th of this year. It was written by Dr. Ivan Oransky and Adam Marcus, and they're co-founders of a website called Retraction Watch on the subject of fake news. Keep this in mind because the article itself was wrong. So this is fake news on fake news, on the discussion of fake news. So it's really a little bit convoluted to get your brain around it, but let me try. Their original article was Fake News Invades Science and Science Journalism as well as Politics. The article went on to say, and I quote, Oransky and Marcus cite several dubious findings that were published in scientific journals that purport to engage in peer review, but may not always be as reputable as they seem. These included a conspiracy mongering claim that the vapor trails behind jet planes contain toxic materials, not merely ice crystals. Another usually questionable study linking vaccines to autism, a long debunked connection, and a whopper asserting that HIV doesn't cause AIDS. Well, today it's our time to discuss the subject of ice crystals behind airplanes. They're called contrails. But there's another take on this, and that is where what you're seeing is not in fact contrails, but chemicals deliberately put into the air, way up high, called chemtrails. And on this subject, I think it would be good to go back to an article in the Rinse blog by a Diane Harvey, who's a research scientist on this topic. It appeared in July of 2001, and I quote on chemtrails, as the extensive operation of anomalous aerosol activities in our skies continues, the efforts of many hardworking and deeply concerned activists are bearing fruit. Despite the ongoing intense secrecy and a particularly vicious disinformation campaign designed to dissuade the public from even looking into this matter, more and more people are nevertheless becoming aware of this phenomenon. Every day, the original salient questions are being asked all over again by a number of newly awakened and startled citizens. What am I looking at here? How can I know that something not strange is going on? How do I know who to believe? The following information is an attempt to provide a model for individual investigation suitable for use by any interested and open-minded citizen, unquote. And then they go on to explain some ways in which you can study this further and come to your own conclusions. And that's in fact what I would like you to do in your own time, is not to believe what I say, but to learn how to decipher truth from fiction and use a little bit of common sense. If it is in fact true that what you see up in the sky is only contrails, then explain why we have from geoengineeringwatch.org, a very educated site on this topic. We have their explanations of how we have been spraying chemicals into the air since 1961 for what we call weather modification. So that means everything you see in the sky is not, in fact, contrails. Maybe they're not bad chemicals. Maybe they're just there to reflect sunlight back into space and thereby cooling off the planet. Or causing, causing rain where we may want some. Well, this is not exactly accurate, because if you go to one of the articles in geoengineeringwatch.org, they explain how some of these chemicals that are being sprayed into the air may not be that safe. And they can include chemicals like aluminum, barium, selenium, and so forth. And if you go on to some of the research of Russell Blaylock, who's a neurosurgeon, he describes in his documentary called What Chemtrails Are Doing to Your Brain how these chemicals, including aluminum, are actually causing neurological symptoms and very dangerous what kind of outcome can occur in patients who are suffering from aluminum overload and other chemicals that are sprayed into the air. And if you think back to some of the original studies going back 20, 30 years where brains of Alzheimer's patients were found to contain very high amounts of aluminum, we know that this is not such a crazy idea, the idea that some of these chemicals that they are spraying can cause neurological problems. Now, by the way, I'm not saying, I should correct myself, I'm not saying that it's been proven that aluminum causes Alzheimer's disease. We just know that many studies have shown the brains of Alzheimer's patients to be higher in aluminum. Whether it's present despite the Alzheimer's, in other words, not a cause of the Alzheimer's, or as a causative agent, we're just not sure. But we are aware that aluminum is neurotoxic. Just think about Gulf War syndrome, where in 1991, the military required our soldiers, about 1 million of them, to receive the anthrax vaccine, which had added to it adjuvants. And adjuvants enhance the activity of the active ingredient in the vaccine, allowing active ingredients to be lower quantities, and adjuvant is made from aluminum. And Gulf War syndrome was denied to be caused by anything. I mean, they denied knowing what was causing it. And finally, the military had to admit that, in fact, the 250,000 troops that had these terrible symptoms that lasted for a long, long time and did not respond to any kind of treatment was, in fact, caused by the anthrax vaccine containing aluminum. So we know that neurological problems can occur from aluminum, whether we are seeing more and more of these, like Lou Gehrig's disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, and so forth, from chemicals that are being sprayed into the air. I'll leave the viewer to decide that on their own. One of the documentaries you may want to look at further for further discussions on this topic is called What on Earth Are They Spraying? Another one is How and Why Chemtrails Are Made, a documentary on the conspiracy of chemtrails geoengineering by Rosalind Peterson. She's an expert on this topic, and this documentary is actually quite compelling, and I'd encourage any viewer to watch that. And finally, one of the best documentaries on this is a 2-part series called Look Up. And it gives a lot of details about chemtrails, what they are, what they're not, a lot of great photographs as well. It's lengthy, that's why it's 2 parts. Chemtrails exist, they're not a myth. So what Oransky and Marcus claim to be fake information, fake news, is totally wrong. It's very smart, though, because it's using what George Orwell described in his 1949 book, 1984. And 1984 is where you say the opposite of what something really is. And it's really clever because now you're reading how this is just fake news. No, it's not. It's real news that they would rather you not know about. Don't take my word for it. Study it up on your own. So, thank you for watching, and that's all we have to say about chemtrails. Have a great day.